folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen. This week we're doing another movie review. This is The Ghost Galleon, written and directed by Amando De Ossorio. And this is the third entry in the Blind Dead series, released in 1974. The film stars Maria Perschy, Jack Taylor, and Carlos Lemos, as well as Barbara Rey. What makes this film different from the past two entries in the series is we get a different setting here, which is pretty interesting. And kind of makes this one stand out a little bit. And I think this film probably had a lot of influence on John Carpenter's The Fog, perhaps. Great job by Amando De Ossorio, once again, who directs each film in the series. So what happens in this film is we meet a young, beautiful, blonde model, and she's looking for her roommate, who is also a swimsuit model. And she goes down to the studio looking for her. And, she's very concerned because they are also lovers as well. So what happens is her and another model are out on this boat as part of this kind of publicity stunt. That the modeling agency thought would get them some good press, by having these two girls seemingly kind of stranded out in the middle of the ocean in this little boat, But of course, they end up being in the wrong place at the wrong time because we see the mist start to come out of the ocean. And behind the mist is this really creepy-looking 16th century galleon, this old Spanish warship. So the girls decide, hey, we're going to get stuck out here on this little boat. We might as well go on to the big, giant ghost ship and investigate, see if they can get some help and get back to land because there's water starting to pour into their little boat. Bad things happen, because inside that galleon ship lies the remains of the Knights Templar, the satanic medieval knights who were excommunicated from their village because of their horrible, horrifying practices of sacrificing young virgins in order to become immortal. Their eyes were burned out and they were killed, So what happened was, I guess, once they were captured, their remains were brought onto this galleon ship. So their coffins are inside there, and guess what? They're not dead. They're the undead. So the Templars start rising from their coffins, and we get that classic creepy atmosphere that this series is so well known for. And I will say that is the one reason to watch this film, because the atmosphere in this movie is incredible. Everything with the knights is amazing. That's the reason to watch this film, because otherwise some of these characters are kind of boring and uninteresting. There's no character development whatsoever. I mean, yeah, you get some scantily clad models, but there's not like a whole lot of gore in this film. There's not really any nudity per se, that the other films had. But yeah, we get plenty of Knights Templar action, and my favorite thing about it is once the knights creep up on these young models, it's very uncomfortable because the scenes are so slow-paced, and you see the young models creeping and crawling and climbing slowly, trying to get their way out, and they're just surrounded everywhere they go. The Templars are surrounding them, and it's very uncomfortable and eerie to watch. And they're crusty, and you see their long skeleton arms reach out and grab, choking them out, and oh man. It just goes on for so long that you feel really bad for the girls, and the actresses do a fantastic job of portraying their horror and their fear, and yeah, I just love it. It's great stuff. Yeah, like I said, there's not a whole lot of gore, but there is one scene in particular that is very gory. One of the models does get captured by the knights and beheaded, and they rip her body apart and start eating on her hands and her flesh, and it's pretty nasty. But yeah, if you're looking for tons of gore, all kinds of nudity, and great special effects, you're not going to get a whole lot of that. But what you do get is fantastic atmosphere. That's the reason to watch this series, and that's the reason to watch this film. It's definitely noticeably more of a low budget in this film, I notice, because there's one scene that's kind of hilarious when you see the ship on fire. You can tell it's a model, a toy model, and it's painfully obvious. But so what happens is the modeling agency hire this professor who's the head of the scientific research center, and he's very knowledgeable about the phenomenon because apparently the ship has been seen around the ocean, and anyone who comes into contact with it never returns. So he knows a little bit about the phenomenon, and he also knows about the Galleon ship, and he knows about the Templar Knights. He knows the history of them, and he knows what to do. He knows that they were Satan worshippers, and they sacrificed young women in order to make themselves immortal. And he knows how to combat against the Knights, because he also knows a thing or two about exorcism. So that's what he decides to do. He says the rites of the exorcism. He gets a burning cross and points in their face, and Templars start to cringe and back off, and they set the whole ship on fire, and all is seemingly won, and they all are about to onboard the ship and onto this log that's floating in the ocean. But of course there's too much weight for all 5 of them, so they end up leaving the professor behind, promising that they will return to get him. And of course they don't, and the guy ends up dying in the fiery wreck, and then meanwhile the young blonde model and the head of the model agency are floating around on a log in the ocean, swimming out to the land, But when you think it's all over, you get an awesome ending. And I'm not going to tell you guys what that is because I want you guys to check it out, but it's so cool. It's so awesome. I love it. But yeah, just when you think it's over, just remember that classic tagline you see in so many horror films, just when you thought it was over, it's not over. But a great ending that just makes you want to keep watching the series, and you can't wait for the next one, which the next one is Night of the Seagulls, and that's the final entry in the Blind Dead series. So, yeah, I definitely feel like if you enjoy zombie films with some great atmosphere, I think you will find some enjoyment on this film, and you can see what I'm saying when this film probably did influence John Carpenter's The Fog and films like that, all these ghosts, pirate ship movies, there's gotta be a lot of that influence from this film, this little Spanish film from the Blind Dead series. I really enjoy this series, guys, so I highly recommend all of them. Watch this whole franchise. I feel like it's highly underrated. So I do give the Ghost Galleon 2 devil horns up, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorcona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorcona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorcona.com. Folks, don't forget to grab your Sean Patrick Erschen gear and represent the Horror Corner. Also check out these awesome mugs we have. Perfect for your coffee. And definitely check out the Horror Hangout live stream t-shirt and represent the legacy of the Horror Hangout. Check out the link in the description below this video.